For your next picture on the Color and Art worksheet, you are going to need to use analogous colors. Let's review what analogous colors are. Remember, analogous means similar or the same type. In art, analogous colors are any 3 to 5 colors that are side by side on the color wheel. Analogous colors help match and help things look good together. They create a cohesive color palette. Also, when using analogous colors, we need to remember that they help us layer and blend together. It gives a layered look that gives interest and depth to our work. Now, let's look at the picture that you're going to be coloring. The picture you're coloring is this scene of a landscape. You'll notice that we have some hills, some trees, and some bushes. For the sake of time, I've already colored some of this. You can see that I've colored the sky using atmospheric perspective. I started with a darker blue on top, and I layered that blue very lightly, and then eventually ended up with a lighter blue here near the bottom to show atmospheric perspective. You can see as I've colored my hills, I've followed the direction and the contour. That's the shape. So this hill over here, I used diagonal lines going this way. And this hill here, I used diagonal lines going the opposite way. And this one, you can see that diagonal line with a curve happening. That's to make sure I show the shape of the mountains, and it helps show what's going on in the picture. Now, you can see my analogous color scheme is yellow-green, green, blue-green, blue, and blue-violet. So those are the colors that I chose to use as I colored this scene. So let's go ahead and keep talking about this. Remember, in atmospheric perspective, the farther things get away from you, the lighter they get and the more hazy they get. For this reason, I decided to make sure that my colors got lighter the farther back they went. This is just going to help show the distance in our picture. I'm putting in a final layer of color along this hill to really show that it's the closest and the most saturated with color. Saturated just means full of color. About here's where I need to start thinking about the shape of my mountain, my little hill here, because we can see that it moves up and over. So I'm going to start following that direction, getting a little bit more of that curve in there to really show the contour. You can see I've added some green on here before. There was some green, some yellow-green, another layer of green. So I've just gone back and forth with that layering of colors. Very gently, very carefully, to add interest and let that start to look more full of color. On the trees over here, you can see I've done some of the same thing. This one I filled in with some green. And to layer colored pencil, I'm going to start filling in some of this area where it would be shaded. You can see I've picked a direction and stuck with it during the coloring. I'm going to just keep filling this in with some color where there would be shadow. Using these darker colors helps build up that shadow, trying to just keep my scene analogous. Next I'll get this blue and start to fill in even more shadow. This just gives more depth to your pictures. Notice I'm not adding a ton of pressure. I don't want to turn the tree blue, but I'm using these darker values to make it stand out more. Finally, I'll grab my blue-violet and just add a little bit here in the very edges. Not a lot, just a little bit. Notice I did use brown for my tree trunks. You can color the tree trunks brown. I use a little yellow-green here at the top, just to really sell the idea that this tree is nice and full of layered color. Just adding those layers really starts to fill in that color. I need to do the same thing with these bushes over here, right? We've got a layer of green. Maybe I add another one to make it stand out more. I want some of that lighter color on top. So I use the yellow-green. Slowly blend it in. And maybe I want a little bit of shadow down here on the bottom. So I take a little bit of that blue-green on the opposite end. Just kind of blend it in. And then I can take that green and I'm going to do one more layer over everything. Notice how this bush stands out a lot more now than these other two. I'm going to keep working on these, but it's time for you to work on this hill, tree, and sky picture as well.